cover of Eminem's Rap God by metalcore band Animal and Me. I don't think anybody really appreciated it as much as I did. I saw Jake's face and he was like, what is this?
I was not prepared for that.
It's because it was coming through your speakers at like a faster rate or something. It sounded awful coming through yours for us. It sounded fine on stream.
Well then that means...
I mean, as fine as it can be.
That means that I did not do the thing I wanted to do, but that's okay as long as it was fine on stream.
It was almost a great Nightcore version.
Yeah.
Do people stick through that for the stream? I'm curious.
Well, that's what and you know what? Sometimes I try a thing and I get the vibe it ain't working. By the way,
please come back, everyone. We're starting now.
By the way, that song is 6.5 minutes long and I bailed at 2. So just so
that did not seem like the 5 minutes long that we were promised. So I mean, Pantera is never wrong. I'm just saying.
You had your Pantera last week.
I know. I was going to suggest some My Bloody Valentine this time, but
good Lord.
Maybe next week.
Okay, welcome to the show. Such as it is. My name is Danny Akatsuki. I work at Trimark for now. I think it's got a Teams message on the side from Sean going, "Hey, call me later." Message received, boss. I saw it in your eyes. No more Eminem covers on the show. Welcome to Friday. It is your Friday before a holiday weekend for most people. If you're in the U.S., at least, I'd like to think that we have some out-of-country people watching us, but just in case you don't. Just in case we don't, welcome and enjoy your weekend. We are here in the Trimark Happy Hour, TrimarkSecurity.com for all of your AD, Azure AD, and VMware assessment needs. We do some consulting stuff too, so just not for nothing, we're pretty smart here. And we do this every week. We do this right here on Twitch. And we got a lot of guests today. We have, Sean's joining us again. Welcome, Sean, our fearless leader. Jake, I'm going to let you introduce your guests.
Okay. Well, I was going to introduce our prior guests first here. We still have Brandon on the stream. We can't get rid of him.
Ugh.
Thank you.
I was so encouraged because he wasn't here yet, and I was like, man, this video popped up.
It can't be not Dev and not I at the same time. All right.
That's fair.
That's true.
Pick your poison.
That's fair.
Then we also have Kathy, aka Investigator Chick, who's here because it is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Investigator
happy birthday.
Chick! Yay!
Thank you.
Happy 23rd.
And then, with us, we also have Sam, who how much up your little intro you gave me, buddy? Senior infrastructure engineer at a not-for-profit tech healthcare company, doing AD, Exchange, group policy, and whole Microsoft ecosystem. And yeah, let's see, deep into Azure AD and M365 because everyone knows Active Directory is slowly dying out. So
I really liked, I think it was Jim Sikora that said intra on-prem.
Love it.
I like it.
And then we've got Spencer. Spencer, how do you pronounce your last name?
I pronounce it Alessi.
All right.
Then that's the right pronunciation.
That's the right pronunciation. That's right.
How would you like us to pronounce it?
You can say it however you want. I've had people say Alisi in every variation of that. So
my grandmother used to say, you can call me whatever you want, just don't call me too early in the morning. And I'm with that.
Perfect. Mine is just don't call me. Just don't call me. I don't phone. No. Spencer is a penetration tester with Secure IT 360, which is a penetration testing firm that focuses on the legal side of things. So yeah, bringing those guys on today to talk a little bit about Locksmith development.
What is Locksmith, Jake?
Locksmith is a tiny tool that helps you identify and remediate problems with your Active Directory certificate services installation.
And how much does this cost?
It's $0. Thanks for asking.
That's my favorite price, Jake.
It's my favorite price too.
I have that exact amount in my pocket. That works out well.
It's free. There must be some sort of catch. What's the catch?
Catch is that we would really like you to help contribute if you like it and find it useful. But yeah, I think today we're going to actually start out with some news. I think Danny's got some things he wants to talk about, but then we'll delve into Locksmith, ADCS, and working on an open source project led by an idiot. So yeah.
Yeah. This is so stupid. And normally we don't do a whole lot of news up front, but we might start doing that, mostly because we were going to publish our newest Trimark newsletter coming out next week, and it's already at the printers. And we put in, like, we call it SME talk, right? Like what we all talk about in chat and things like that. We used to call it water cooled chat until we realized, like, none of us go to a water cooler anymore. So just stuff we talk about in teams and things like that. And yeah, we got some pretty smart people. So I'll go through the teams and I'll look at things and see what's interesting. And something just goes really rubbing me the wrong way, you jerks. Google decided to push a .zip domain available for everybody. And I'm very angry about it. There's a good headline on malwarebytes.com. Zip domains, the domain nobody asked for. A bad idea nobody asked for. Google Registry actually announced 8 new top-level domains. .dad, .phd, .prof, .esquire, .foo, .move, .nexus. I'm going to assume that's, I don't know, maybe for LexisNexis, that really overpriced research tool.
I got identity.nexus.
Did you really?
Yeah, thanks to the hat tip from Jake.
Oh, good job. And
I got Kate's.dad because Kate's my kid.
Yeah.
So there. Yeah.
But as Malwarebytes Labs goes on to say, but it was .zip and .move that had security eyeballs looking skywards because of their obvious similarity to the extremely popular and long-lived .zip and .move extensions. Anybody see the problem with this?
No problem, Danny.
What's that?
No problem. I see no problem. What are you talking about?
What could possibly go wrong?
One of the Medium articles that I saw that was talking about this was like, can you distinguish between these two URLs? Which one is malware? Which one is not? I think we all saw this went around, and like, unless you were old school and knew that the @ sign has meaning in a URL, it was essentially indistinguishable. As soon as you saw that @ sign, it's like, okay, obviously that one is.
And there are ways to obfuscate that too.
Yeah, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I had a mini debate with one of my Enterprise Security Weekly co-hosts yesterday on the podcast, and he thought it was amusing, and I thought it was annoying, and we agreed to disagree.
It could be both.
Against the backdrop, Google inexplicably decided to introduce something that will generate no useful revenue, but will give cybercriminals an entirely new form of file and domain name misdirection.
Can't be true because John Hammond spent his paycheck buying domains. I saw on Twitter. So.
I mean, no shade, but doesn't Google usually do things that don't generate revenue? I mean,
but why? I don't understand. I'm skimming this article. I've read so many. Like, I'm trying to figure out why they did it.
I don't think there's a why.
They registered it and made it.
Could?
Yeah, because they could, right? But wasn't it initially configured like 12 years ago too, or something like that? And then like they've just been waiting on it to. They said, okay.
They were waiting for the resurgence of the zip disk, which is about 30 years old now. You're welcome.
That's what it is.
It was already in the pipeline. Sorry.
Yeah, it was on our roadmap. We just had to get it off. Yeah, that's
I like that. So in
someone
chat,
needs to check the box. Check, it's done.
in chat, Beto says that he bought Windows-x86-64.zip.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Nice. One of the interesting things about that, I think, and probably why there's a lot of like people are up in arms, right? Is because in the Windows File Explorer, you type in the .zip file name that doesn't exist, and you just go to the web browser for some reason, because not, right?
Because that's how that works.
And there was a researcher, Mr. Docs, on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw that. He shared a WinRAR webpage that he built, It simulated like the WinRAR archiving tool, and you can like scan the file and like open, and like he created some, very sophisticated looking phishing landing page out of that using the zip domain. So there's that potential too, which is scary and also pretty creative.
Can you drop that in the Twitch chat? Oh wait, you're not on the Twitch chat, are you?
We'll find it.
All right, good deal.
But how old do you have to be to recognize WinRAR?
Yeah,
I just uninstalled it from my Windows box. It's like, I don't need this anymore. What's going on?
Or like Winamp, right? Like there's some kid out there right now, 19 years old. Ooh, what's Winamp?
Hey, it's still
What's the
around.
deal with the llama?
That poor llama's been being abused for 30 years.
They're releasing it again. I don't know if you saw that. I'm on the wait list.
Yeah.
In the beta again. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It recently had its birthday, and they have a new thing. I don't want give me the old skins. I don't want any new skins. Do not waste time on new skins for me. They hold no interest in me. Give me that old school yellow and gray, like boombox-ish thing. That is second in my heart only to the Windows Media Player visualizations that I used to use.
Oh yeah, those are great, and they're not there anymore, which is disappointing.
I haven't used. Well, obviously, I don't use like a media player for anything, but like
I did earlier today.
Did you really?
I was playing an MP3 because I'm old school like that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the thing that happened. Citizen Lab John Scott Ranson urged his nearly 200,000 Twitter followers to simply block it all, saying the chance that new .zip and .move domains mostly get used for malware attacks is 100%.
Yeah. Hey, Jared, block those, please.
Yeah. Dear Jared Haight, if you are listening and within reach of our voice, block them, please. Maybe I'll call our other people and have them block it too. So anyway, that's just the one thing that I wanted to rant about. There was nothing else of note unless somebody else has something that happened. But yeah, .zip domains. Although it does kind of fall in line with what I used to do when I was when I would do we used to call them health checks or whatever. We would go into a company and do like a threat hunting type thing, and I would used to generate traffic, and I would like make the headers say like totally not malware.com or whatever, and just see who picked it up, right? And a shocking amount never actually picked it up. But this is not funny. That's something I could do on my own for lulz, right? Like it didn't go anywhere, and the SOC would get a little laugh out of it when they saw it. Now the general public is like, hey, yeah, let's go. This is a great idea. Anyway, I'm done ranting for the day.
Oh, you're supposed to set the evil bit to yes.
Kathy, I don't think you're done for the day.
You're not done for the day.
I don't think you're done for the day at all. Happy birthday,
You're
Kathy.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna like periodically inject the happy birthday. Now we can go on to our regular scheduled programming.
Rant over, and now we move on to talking about everybody's favorite topic, ADCS. Yay! So
we're perfectly on time too. I was just telling someone was asking about like what the happy hour is about, and I was like, well, we talk about nothing for the first 20 minutes, and then we have some sort of content.
Wow, we're really good today.
Look at that.
Yeah, we're doing well.
Sorry, Jake, I cut you off. ADCS. Go.
No, it's all right. So as mentioned earlier, I maintain a project called Locksmith. Came out of the research that I lovingly stole from everyone else on the internet, as all of this does, to start integrating Active Directory certificate services checks into Trimark tool. And as part of that, I was like, oh, this would actually be a great tool for, operations folks to just run in their own environment and find their weird stuff in their environment. And so released it last year around time of Deadwood, Wildwood Hack Invest Deadwood. And a couple months later, I was having my own happy hour on a Friday night and talking about Locksmith, and this guy named Tech Spence said, I love what you're doing with Locksmith. I'd love to help out. And I said, love it. I will DM you tomorrow. And then a few days went by, and then I remembered that I had said that to someone and had to track it down. And yeah.
And then Jake's like, what's a PR?
Thankfully, Jared Haight has really we follow a lot of the Jared school of development when it comes to Locksmith. But so yeah, I reached out to Spencer, found out what his deal was, doing pen testing, but mostly assume breach stuff, right? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, that's mostly what I'm focused on now.
Okay. So, is used to, directory, but also came from a sysadmin background. And I was like, yeah, if you want to, submit some code, let's do this. And so we started having weekly meetings. And then earlier this year, was it, I believe, Sam? I saw this guy, Sam, I'd been seeing around Twitter. And, I was always like, man, that guy's got a good smile. Fills the room.
Okay.
But he posted something about, running Locksmith in his environment and finding a ton of stuff. And this is really cool. And, you should do this. It's free. Cool. And so I reached out and I said, listen, I would love to have somebody coming from an operations standpoint. The coding that we're doing is not super in depth, but if you want to learn and get into deeper PowerShell scripting, like all we're doing here. And he agreed. And so then now we've got a team of 3 that are like the regular contributors here for Locksmith. So I just kind of wanted to talk about having 3 different viewpoints on how both attacking and securing and just operating Active Directory certificate services goes. So hey, thanks Danny thanks Brandon for throwing for doing Danny's work for him.
Listen, I am doing other things behind the scenes. Don't look behind the curtain. Keep talking. But by the way, Sam, where do you call home? Where's work for you?
Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine.
Currently. So I've been here in the Portland area for my whole life, but preparing to move to North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. So everything except for that shelf is in boxes now, and got a few more days left.
Oh, well, welcome.
Good luck with that, man.
Thanks.
Got to keep a shelf in the background for the Zoom background points.
Yeah.
And Spencer is in the middle of nowhere.
I'm in New York.
Yeah.
Oh,
Central
really?
New York.
Oh, I'm like 90 minutes. Are you like New York proper or like New York City ish?
Like right smack dab central New York state. So
okay.
I'm like an hour east of Syracuse area.
Nice. Good for you. I like it. We go to Lake George all the time during the summer. I love that. I love upstate.
Yep. Yeah, it's beautiful there. Except when it's 34 and it's almost June. So
No, thank you.
that's not fun. But
I don't know why I chose to derail that with ask where everybody was from. That was me trying to like
open source.
surreptitiously trying to figure out how everybody works. Anyway, continue as you are. Well, what I do here is I have little nameplates, right? And I have a gimmick in case anybody's picked up on it. I abbreviate where people work, and then I do their name / their Twitter handle like a command prompt. I think it's cute. It tickles me to death, but I don't know where either of these guys work, so I couldn't really like abbreviate. I found out where Spencer worked. Now it's me surreptitiously trying to find out the other where Sam works, and then it didn't work. All right, everybody, back as you were. I'll just be over here.
It's okay. I'll transition us back again.
Thank you.
So one thing that's interesting with Active Directory certificate services and what we've seen at Trimark doing assessments of Active Directory for us is about roughly half of the environments we've seen have ADCS in them, which means that there are a lot of extremely vulnerable AD environments because of this.
Since we started testing, I've seen one without it. One without ADCS. Some of it is active and some of it is not, but yeah, one completely without it.
I think the numbers are probably closer to 80 to 90%, but
yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's at least half.
But yeah, so Spencer is regularly digging into finding stuff, and
yeah, something that's kind of interesting to me, and why I really like the Locksmith project is, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you exploit ADCS misconfigs and stuff like that, but none of them had a remediation, script tied to them, or none of them had like a remediation option for them. It was just, hey, we have found this issue. You got to go figure out how to fix it. So that immediately drew me to Locksmith. I was like, oh, that's cool. You find the issue, you provide a remediation one-liner in PowerShell, and you can like quickly remediate stuff, which is neat, because something that I see a lot on pen tests is the client will say, well, I don't even know how to administer ADCS. I just kind of set it up and it's just kind of there doing its thing. I'm not really an expert at it or anything. I don't know the best course of action. So it's been helpful for them to take it and run this one-liner, and it quickly remediates whatever the issue is, and then they can kind of dig into it more if they need to. But that's kind of what immediately drew me to the project, coming from a pen tester background.
Well, I think the InfoSec environment is replete with tools that find stuff, but not much information or guidance as far as what to do next. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've certainly seen, and others have seen as well. Is it's great to know what the problems are, but that's not even half the story, right? That's like 20-30% of it. You can have a whole lot of issues, but without knowing what to do next, that's not really that valuable.
Yeah, that's a big question we get when we do a pen test is we have this finding. You're like, okay, the next question is, how can I find this and how can I remediate it and what can I use to remediate it and things like that. So those are like the top two questions when you're going through a debrief with a client. And this makes it really nice. So you can speak to those things in order. And it's, really convenient for somebody who's not super well versed in it, but can kind of get things done quickly.
Do you have in your pen testing life, I know of a couple of companies that we've had, guests on, like, this is how you can check and run the commands that we ran, the exact commands. Do you provide that sort of detail when you're giving a report?
So anything, when I'm reporting anything that can be done like that, it can provide a script or a one-liner or just a few pieces of code or something like that in a finding for remediation, we will, especially on internals. Something that I see commonly is, plain text files or plain text credentials and file share, right? And I usually have a long list of files, so I'll provide like a script that'll search those files for whatever that contents was and provide that to the client. So that's really helpful too. But yeah, I think having a quick script just to find those things is really helpful in that situation.
I think it's interesting. I usually think about tool, especially from like a pen test point of view. Everyone seems to be super jazzed about the tools that will find the exploits and then exploit them. So Locksmith does not do the exploiting portion. So I think that's something that it's interesting to hear from your perspective, that you're actually more interested in the remediation than you are the actual attack.
Yeah, and obviously I use Certify and Ghostpack and stuff like that for the actual exploitation of stuff. And but yeah, I think it's super helpful to include stuff like that in a report, because the clients, they want to be able to retest themselves sometimes, right? And they don't necessarily need to like go through the whole exploitation process, but if they can check to see if the ACLs and the certificate template are misconfigured, well, that's a win for them. They don't need to exploit it, right? It's misconfigured. So that has been super helpful for us.
Awesome. And Sam works in a environment with some number of forests. I'm not going to divulge anything, but it's larger than one.
Yep. No, it's a fun history. At one point, we're up to about 6 with an acquisition, and we've been gradually working down from there. And it was complicated by the DISA auditing practice and needing to split out a resource forest at one point, because the team then wasn't ready to have the entire business in scope for that kind of audit. But after a few years, everyone realized it's worth the effort to actually consolidate, as opposed to having all the overhead of multiple forests and who knows what we're using to administer things these days. So yeah, it's been learning a lot just through working with a DoD contract. So I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm grateful for it.
Sean is shaking his head because he's spent plenty of time in the government.
All over the place.
Yeah.
You mean working in the government's not fun and fulfilling?
No
I was
comment.
fulfilled for a while. Oh man. So the thing that I have enjoyed working with these two, like I said before, is just the different viewpoints and being like, it would make it a lot easier for me as an operations person to do this one thing. And Sam brings those in. Oh, it'd make it easier. I'm starting to get feature requests from Brandon at Red Siege now. And then
just ignore
also,
those. Those are garbage. You don't need those.
no, he makes good points, and usually it's like he makes a feature request, and then I screenshot our task book. We've already that going on. We're already thinking about that. So, but yeah, it's just interesting to know that there are people that using this on pen test engagements, using it on IR engagements, using it. I mean, we're basically using the same tool, just integrated into the Trimark tooling as part of Trimark assessments now. Just how it's been working.
And it's fun kind of learning how to, one of the things you want to talk about, Jake, is kind of developing an open source tool and like stumbling through it.
Yes.
I've been working on GitHub and like doing minor stuff, right? Nothing like crazy. You start working on projects with multiple branches and PRs and issues, and you're like, what is it? And you have to like Google the commands and everything, and you're like fumbling through it. So that's part of the fun too for me, is like learning that whole process and like how to do things correctly or like in some standardized way is fun.
I will say it's been really interesting, because I think when you and I first talked, it was like, I don't know, we'll just write some code, and when the code looks good, we commit the code, and that's the process. And now, stood up a Mattermost server a couple of weeks ago with like a full task board, and now
Mattermost.
It's official.
Yo, Mattermost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what saved us from committing straight to prod on a Friday. So don't.
So,
That's right.
as somebody who's been in security for over 10 years now, and I say that just to reference of like how badly I understand coding. Like, I can now read Python and understand what it's doing, but ask me to write it, and I can't do a calculator. I'm sure if that was my regular thing and did it's like any language, right? You got to practice every day, or you use it, you lose it. What's that first?
Senor.
What's that?
Si, senor.
Yeah. Bien. What is that? What's that first day like? When you sit down, like what's the process of? I know I have this thing. Like, where do you even begin to start writing something like this?
I'll let Spencer stands up proofs of concept, all this. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, usually I have an idea in my head of something that I want to do. A lot of times my coding is just out of necessity for certain things. So like one example is I'm on a pen test, and I find that there's an open share or something that I want to crawl, and I can just quickly prototype a script to crawl a directory recursively and look for a specific thing, or look for a specific a file with a specific date timestamp or within a specific range, and just being able to quickly mock that up live on like in the middle of an engagement is super helpful. So usually it's stuff like that. If it's a bigger project for me, I usually just start with kind of a high level outline of what I want, like a list of features I want, or a list of capabilities that I want it to do, and just start poking away at creating stuff that way. I don't know if that's necessarily a good way to do things, but that's just the way my mind works. Like I make a template or an overview, right? Like a table of contents, if you will, and I just start going through and working stuff that way. But a lot of my coding is opportunistic in the sense that I'm on an engagement and I need to do something quick, or I need to adapt something, a tool or something, and I just like mess with it and play around with it.
Mine is more similar. Like I definitely write a series of features, but I actually go into start writing pseudocode. Like, okay, this is the thing that I'm checking for. If this thing comes back, this is what's going to happen, and kind of write a narrative almost, and then kind of leave the narrative in as comments to then start.
It's interesting because I almost never write pseudocode. I just start coding the thing. So there's pros and cons of that. I probably have a lot more bugs than you would write, Jake.
Oh, nope. You only get to see things after that. I've had them marinating for a month and a half, and then I'm like, I think this one line looks good. Press go. So
How
I have like hundreds of GitHub repositories full of code that I've written over the years that it just never will see the light of day. I'm like, no, not showing that to the world.
how true is the meme of just perpetually being on Stack Overflow? Do you still find yourself there, or are you at the point now where like you have your own stuff to reference?
I usually just start with Google. If there's something I'm looking for, especially with PowerShell, you can usually just find it with a quick Google search. So that's usually, I mean, usually end up on Stack Overflow sometimes, but yeah.
I usually
Google,
I just steal from devs code and then work on that, and it's usually good enough. But no,
searching Google and GitHub are two really good places to look for code snippets.
I steal
Yeah,
from
there's
Sean
so much that's already
occasionally.
been done. It's usually pretty easy to find a snippet for one of those little blocks of pseudocode, or if you're just ad-libbing it for what you need to do. So I'd say the same. Once in a while I play with Bing Chat, but I'll still hit Stack or Server Fault when I'm trying to figure out a new concept. Like lately, it's been all right. I do PowerShell all the time, but I haven't done a whole lot of .NET types in PowerShell to accelerate. Those are really cool, especially if you're trying to avoid using a dependency in a module. So I'm everywhere right now trying to learn how to do that because I'm not a developer.
Sam is revealing what we talked about early in our Smith weekly meeting. Yes, we are.
Maybe.
We are eliminating the dependency on PowerShell modules, the AD. That's one of our big moves for Locksmith is we can run without any dependencies. So
Maybe cross-platform.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It's raised some good conversations about who the primary audience is, because like a lot of the tools out there we've talked about, we could spin this in so many directions, and there's already a lot of tools for the InfoSec community that's targeted on offensive sec, and it seems like a lot of people there are familiar with Python or maybe even Node. But if we're looking at people on the ops side of the house like me, systems or infrastructure engineers, we know PowerShell, and it changes a lot if we try to like tweak this and totally abstract from being in a Windows-based environment and using PowerShell or using modules. So it's good to kind of keep that point in mind, and I think we can serve both or all three, depending on how you count, all the communities at the same time, and still have fun doing it.
Yeah, well, and at least Microsoft hasn't deprecated the Active Directory PowerShell modules yet, like they've
don't you
done with
speak that
Azure AD.
into existence. Don't you? The secret is real. That's gonna happen. You know that.
Do you really think so?
No.
I was thinking they'd get rid of ADCS at some point, but kind of like SCCM is kind of maybe away. I don't know, but like because Intune and like cloud and stuff, like maybe.
And they're trying right now.
Exchange?
The horse is ADFS.
Ah.
Right.
They tried with SCCM for the last 10 years. They keep saying, well, this is the last version, and then they just rename it.
That's what I mean.
That's a brilliant idea. Nice.
They're kind of getting away with it with Exchange, right? So I feel like there might be opportunities for them to kind of follow suit with that, but who knows?
I like that. It's like it's so vulnerable that not supported anymore.
And yet we still have public folders, so there's hope for anything.
When I did a transition from Exchange 2010 to Exchange 2016, was one of the last big projects that I did, my last job. 3 years after it was released, but took that opportunity to axe public folders completely. Able to get it's like that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling when you can just rip stuff out and still keep 95% of the people. So
I was having a conversation just yesterday with one of our future guests who does pen tests for small environments. And I told him about Locksmith and I showed it to him. And he's like, nah, like the people I pen test He's like, I don't even look at ADCS because they're not using it. They don't need it. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, are you, because
Yeah.
like they may have it. And
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, we don't pen test like huge Fortune 500 companies. Our biggest space is law firms. We do a lot of law firms, so we do other things as well. But a lot of the environments I'm in are single domain, single forest, not crazy huge environments. And I still see it 70% of the time. I see that ADCS is there. So I mean, I don't know. I think there's some discrepancy, but I think there's some differences in between the clients, the industries, the verticals, perhaps, and kind of who's using ADCS and who's not. But it can vary too.
Yeah, when I rebuilt the one at my last gig, it was I had to pull out 2 fully built PKIs before starting the process of building a new one because my boss needed a certificate for exchange, so it wouldn't complain to end users. Outlook would complain about self-signed certificate, so he stood one up, and then of course that's all it was. Stood up, all the automated stuff that needed to happen happened, and moved on. And that's what I'm thinking that is it the person that's going to be on next week, Brandon?
yeah, no, I don't remember. Whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say have them try regardless.
I think so too, because you're right. I think it's so easy to set up, and that people just do it without even thinking about it because it's a feature. It's like, okay, I'm going to stand up, and it's like standing up an IIS server. It's like, hey, I need a web server. I'm mostly a Windows shop. What am I going to do? I'm just going to install a feature. Like
Next.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Well, that's where I come in.
That'll be secure if all the defaults are set, right?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
That's why I love this tool when I found it, because coming from my team and even having a security team in house, we had no PKI experts, no one experienced with ADCS at all, and so we do what you do. You Google, you look for a walkthrough, and we follow it. And there's really not a lot of great sources for how to set up ADCS properly. Most are just screenshots of the wizard with the default settings. So you never there's a insanely deep well here of knowledge and settings that I should probably understand before I do this. But I have a deadline, and so I'm gonna just hope that the defaults are good. And then it's in, and you move on to the next project, and it's there for 10 years. So you find a tool that actually can scan things for you and tell you, you might want to change this. And especially in small organizations when there's no expert in house, for us, it floated between the systems team and the security team a couple of times, depending on who's interested, who has a project, who somehow got the rights to get into it and change things. And so it really had no owner for a long time. So it's this kind of tool is needed so badly for teams that maybe don't realize they need it. And having it in PowerShell in the language of the AD and Windows administrator is key in making it accessible on that front.
Are you officially the owner of ADCS now in your org?
I have been at times,
but not right now.
He's a recovering
He's
owner.
not going to admit that publicly because then somebody will hold him to it.
I plead the fifth.
If it works in the lab, it should work in prod. I don't know what the problem is.
Right. Yeah, it worked on my machine.
But Sam makes an excellent point. Like, if you have to have a certificate system, so you have to have PKI, are you going to use the thing that Microsoft has that's free that kind of is included, or are you going to go to your boss and say, hey, we need to get a quote from Entrust or another PKI vendor, where you're going to end up spending a lot of money, and then they're going to get mad and be like, yeah, don't do that. Like, that, we don't have money for that. Because you go Entrust and they'll be like, all right, you also need this hardware security module and HSM, and you need redundancy, and you need this, and we need to bring in the vendors, consultants, and before you know it, you're looking at 6 to 7 figures to just get this thing deployed. Or you could click next, done, and then you have the thing. And I think that's why we see so many of these.
Yeah, it blows my mind that the next finish install is not. It says plainly in Microsoft documentation, like the top line, this single tier PKI is not designed for production environments. But they don't show you that when you are walking through the process.
And that's the default. Like the click, 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 you end up with a single tier.
And I understand why it's that way. So I followed a blog article from PeteNet Live when I did my last deployment of a PKI, and it was 2 weeks of reading and rereading, and then consulting Microsoft documentation, and then going again, and then pulling some stuff from ForceSysOps, and then pulling in all these different blogs, and finally kind of running through the whole process once, realizing I fucked something up at step 8 out of 80, and going back through the whole process again before it was done properly. And granted, the last run through took 2.5 hours, 3 hours, but all that work leading up to it is just painful.
I'm curious from you, Sean. Like, why do you think it is that way? Like, why do you think it was designed in that way to be kind of like mass consumption and just like easy for everybody to set up and just easy to use, but it lacks kind of the granularity needed to be secured, out of the box? Yeah,
I think what we're seeing a lot of the times now are design decisions that were made in the late 90s, early 2000s. So Active Directory came out, I think Windows 2000 Server, as it was called, I believe that came out in February of 2000. So that meant it was developed in 98, 99. So nothing was internet connecting then. Sure, single tier PKI is not secure, but at the same time, if you have a network that is closed and no one can actually get to it, and you have other things that are in place there, then what's the bar? Really, what is the risk with that? Someone would get on that physical server and steal it. That's I think pretty much what the concern was. But a lot of the times these environments, once you internet connected them, a lot of these practical or even theoretical attacks became reality. I mean, we've seen that with Kerber hosting. I actually I met Tim Medina at NolaCon. I was there, ran into Jared there, and I believe it was 2018, 2019, and went up and said, "Hey, Tim, thanks for Kerber roast." And I say that as a blue teamer. And he's like, "What?" No one ever says that to me. I said, "No, because now I can prove to admins that these service counts need to have better passwords because they had never changed them. They don't ever want to change them, so they don't. And Kerber roasting isn't the only way to attack a password. So at least now we can show that there's an issue." Same thing with Locksmith and other tools and information that SpectreOps folks and others have published over the years about issues with ADCS. These are the things that are the reality. And I think that when it comes to the configurations, I mean, Jake has seen that there's a couple of vendors that are like, you have to configure your ADCS templates this way. And so people do, and then they always get flagged for vulnerabilities when we do an assessment. I believe one of them's VMware, and I think the other one's at MDM. So it's not good. I think it's AirWatch. So those are the two that we've seen the most that are just like, this was configured because this is how the product works. And I think that's a lot of what we see in InfoSec is this was configured because this is how the product works. The vendor said do it this way, so we do it that way. Microsoft defaults have never been secure. They haven't been secure. They're not secure now. Dave Wesson over at Microsoft is working hard to change that and make sure that defaults are secured. But Azure AD, the defaults are not secure. It's a constant struggle. But I don't think Microsoft is the only ones here that have the situation where their defaults aren't secure. There's plenty of products out there that have issues, even right out the box. But to answer your question, Sam, I think it's just a combination of history along with the let's make it easy, let's make it work, and certainly a tiered approach to a certificate authority is the correct approach, where you have an offline enterprise CA and you have subordinate CA, which is the one that's actually giving out certificates. So that way you can revoke that cert for that subordinate CA and then create a new one from that offline root cert. But who does that? I mean, Jake, how many of the assessments we see that have ADCS that are single tier? What, like almost all of them?
That is one thing I will say. Like enterprise wide, we don't see single tiers very much.
Okay, well that's good.
That is very
I've actually
It's just the cert templates that are wildly vulnerable.
yes, the
Exactly.
templates are wildly vulnerable. Yep.
I've been through that process that you just described, where we have the tiered structure. There was a question about the integrity of one of the keys from our subordinate, so we burned it and built a new subordinate, and it was momentarily painful, but it was great. That's why you have the offline route. And yes, it's the templates that we see the dirtiest stuff, and a lot of times it is another MDM vendor, for one example, saying, configure it this way. Come to find out, what's this ESC5 thing I have to fix now? So,
How many?
I think a lot of people don't realize, at least I didn't when I built it as from an operations standpoint of as a sysadmin, I did not in a million years think that I'm introducing security vulnerabilities by creating a certificate template. Because why would that be a thing, right?
How
It's like, okay,
crazy is
so what?
that?
Somebody's going to put it on a website and pretend to be me. It's internal, whatever. Like,
It's kind of like when you're in AWS and you're creating an IAM role, identity access management role. You're like, I'm creating this role. I think this is appropriate. This can't possibly lead to a vulnerable configuration in AWS. Again, it's the same sort of thing. Like you have the ability to make these changes and set these settings. What does that mean? Thankfully, when I worked in a very large Active Directory environment, the deployment I did in the early 2000s, where we deployed about 1,000 DCs in a global environment across 10 domains over, I think it was close to 300 sites, very large AD environment. We had a person and persons dedicated to the PKI side of things. And so from that point forward, after the many discussions I had with the PKI people that really knew, like Diffie-Hellman at its core level, they understand exactly how the certificate chain worked and the math behind it. I'm like, I am never touching PKI. So it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm doing ADCS ever. And I didn't. And every time after that, someone asked me about PKI and the ADCS stuff, I was like, no. And then when I was going through the Microsoft Certified Master Program at Microsoft, the person who was talking about PKI with us that went from the 100 to 400 level in about 6 hours, he is the person that ran PKI at Microsoft. So yeah, I mean, I have been thankful that I've been exposed to really good PKI folks, really smart folks that understand the technology at its core, how it's supposed to work, how it's supposed to be configured and configured securely. But that's not the way the world works. Like when you go for your driver's test, you know, Jeff Gordon is probably not your dad and probably not the one teaching you. So like there's the law of averages out there where you have a situation where I need to get the job done. I need to get this configured. And yeah, I just need the thing to be able to give out the certs when, you know, something asks for it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make it work. Because I got 50 other things I got to do that are higher priority than this.
That's why you click next on all defaults, Sean. You're a busy man. We're coming up on our end here. I like to do closing thoughts, and Jake has this bug that he wants to be positive, right? He wants to do wins for the week. So at your leisure. However, I do want to say, okay, if we're gonna be positive, Jake, if we're gonna go with your thing, it's not my default mode. I don't know. I'm viscerally I have a visceral reaction when Jake wants to be positive about something. I'm like, what's your angle, bruh? My win for the week is it is Investor Chick's birthday. And you have, speaking of all this offensive and defensive stuff, you got a book coming out, don't you?
I do, July 25th. And Sean was incredibly helpful with working on this.
I feel like
he gave me
so
some
long.
great insight. Yeah, it's been about a year in the making, so it has been coming for a while.
It is quite impressive what investigator chick has pulled together, and the folks that she has talked to in order to pull together a comprehensive, or as comprehensive as possible, a book about being an active defender. So yeah, it comes out this fall. Let's make sure we get a link in the chat, and
It's already in
also
there,
let
boss.
people know where they can get it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It looks really good.
Pre-order it now, and you said it was July, end of July.
Yeah, July 25th is the date. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was thinking a little bit. So some final thoughts from me about this topic. I mean, in general, I think we sysadmins focus on the day-to-day operational stuff and not what the ramifications of any of the things that they do, because they don't know what's possible, which is at the heart of what I'm writing about in the Active Defenders, is understanding what offense capabilities are. And so you're not just blindly doing next without thinking about that. And so it's kind of approaching all of this in that way. And I think that's really at the heart of why we see so much of that. Sean is absolutely right. Like, defenders and operational folks are just trying to get these things done so they can move on to the next thing. But if they just stop and take a minute and go, oh, if I click this, that means it's possible to do this. Maybe I shouldn't go through. Maybe I should find something else that's a priority that's not as dangerous.
Or if I manage this password through group policy preferences, what does that actually mean?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, there are a lot of those things that we take for granted, I think, as operational people and defenders. And once I kind of found the space where offensive security folks live, it was a real eye-opener. And that was what, part of the impetus for the book.
Do you have any chapters in there dedicated to logging into domain controllers with an Xbox?
No, I can't say that I do. I'm sorry.
That'll be the next edition. We'll make sure we get that
second
updated
edition
with the privilege access Xbox.
Yes.
The packs.
Love it.
It's cutting edge. You got to say, hey, we're gonna push it back a month. I got to put a whole new chapter in here. And for my next trick, I'm going to log into my Exchange server on my PlayStation.
There you go.
I'll use an RDP client for the Xbox, so make that happen, Microsoft.
What was one of the most dumbest remote things? God, what was it? Not PC. Yeah, PC Anywhere maybe. Oh God, no, I forget what it was. Anyway, I was a brand new admin. I wasn't even in security yet. I was a regular IT guy, and I had posted, VNC, that's what it was. And I posted, if you Google my name, I don't recommend it, but if you do, one of the earliest links is still me on, thank you SK3W, new follower for us. One of the earliest links is still a post from me with my real name, like giving information, asking how to VNC to my network and to my DC, which was a Windows 2000 server. And like, I think I gave IP addresses and shit. Somebody asked me for the external IP. And I was like, oh, it's here. And it's the internet never forgets. So that's still out there. But that's why I try to do so many like conference talks, and I'm only trying to bury my own Google search results. So I want to do so much stuff that goes away. But anyway,
we have found VNC on domain controllers and Active Directory security assessments.
Oh my God!
Many other issues like old versions of VMware tools. So yeah, we have seen a lot of crazy stuff, but more importantly, we help guide our customers to fix it.
I'm the problem. It's me. All right. Well, since this is your brilliant idea, Jake, what's your closing win?
My win for the week was waking up Tuesday and looking at Mattermost and seeing Mattermost and GitHub and seeing 6 PRs from these two, and just being like, what is going on? What does a little bit of organization do? It's just like, yeah, a little bit of organization. All of a sudden, these guys are just flourishing. So love it. Thank you guys for helping out. I think at this point, I have written less lines of Locksmith than these two have. I mean, probably combined, but I think it's true. I'm no longer the primary contributor. So
yeah. That was the height of my productivity, was Monday to Tuesday. So
yeah, same here.
Great out the gate. Not much for stamina.
That's all right. You two can coast for the rest of the month now.
That's right. You're all good. What about you, Sean? What was your win for the week?
My win for the week?
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Actually getting on a plane and making it back to my home state after there was a maintenance issue and I got delayed by another day. That would be my win for the week. No, actually, I had a great time beside Springfield and chatted with a bunch of folks there, and we hosted a meetup after the conference, and the organizers were kind enough to call it the unofficial happy hour during almost every break, and pointing folks to go to that. So I think that's going to be the thing now, is the Trimark unofficial, the unofficial after party is what it was called. So yeah, that was a win, and that was even really before my work week got started. So.
Oh, so that was like they didn't already have that plan. It wasn't just a coincidence that we did our thing and then they're like, oh yeah, let's go make that a thing.
Yeah, they saw it on Twitter and then they said during the break, without even talking to me, they were like, yeah, and Trimark's doing the unofficial after party and it's over at the Dublin Pass pub, and yeah, just show up there, talk to Sean, and it was awesome.
And
the beer is flowing.
It's amazing because I pulled that just straight out of nowhere. Like, Sean asked us to do that, and I googled what's the weather in Springfield, where is there a patio, and Sean likes Irish pubs, and that's how that happened.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, we had a bunch of people hanging out and chatting, and the thing I loved about it is first of all, B-Side Springfield is a really cool conference because it's really focused on networking, single track, etc. But it was cool to have the meetup and have folks that were students and people that had been working for a while, and a person that taught and was actually spinning up a cybersecurity minor at the university that they're working at. So it was a lot of really cool conversation by practitioners, long-term folks, newer folks, just talking about like InfoSec topics as well as non-InfoSec topics. So it was really cool.
Awesome. Brandon, what's your week thing?
Right. Everything seems lame now.
Yeah, right. Good luck
Sean
following that. Sean's
I
not
had
here.
cereal for lunch, so go ahead, Brandon. You can beat that.
We are celebrating the end of the kids' years of school year. So today was their last day of school, so got to pick them up. Son, last weekend they had a little graduation party for him for graduating preschool, so that was cool.
Fantastic.
And then now I'm finally getting myself around to pre-ordering Kathy's book, so I have it in my Amazon cart and I'm about ready to click purchase. So
celebrating end of school is a strong word, because that just means I'm paying for a bunch of summer activities now.
Yes,
But he is old enough now where he can like do his stuff, but we also so now he's only going to be out half the time and he gets a few weeks just at home. But still, like, it's highway robbery. Like, just to be able to go to some other place and hang out. That's not as comfortable as his own house, but that's fine. Everything's fine.
and babysitters. Like we're hiring somebody to watch the kid, so I don't have to have kids upstairs while I'm trying to work downstairs. So
there is something to be said for lowering the child age for labor. Like, they should be paying their own way, I think.
So technically, I don't believe there is one if you have your own business or farm. So you could just put them to work for that.
I'm gonna learn how to raise chickens thanks to our Lauren, and then maybe I'll get him a W-2 and off to the races. Let's go to Spencer. Wait, did you go already? No.
I was just over here laughing. Yeah, so my win for the week is I replaced one of my kids' bike chains.
Nice.
It took me like 3 hours.
It's such a pain.
But I did it, and then 3 hours later he came back and said it fell off again. So
For something that looks like it should be so straightforward, like even on my mountain bike, right? Like, I like change gears and like hold a handle with a thing and like do an incantation. Like, it's the most. It should not be. Like, I'm smart. I know I'm smart. But no, I'm not.
same with me. Like, when it comes to power tools or just tools in general, I'm very defunct. Like, I just can't do it. Like computers, I can take apart with my eyes closed. All the high tech stuff. But when it comes to like tools, I can't do it.
Well, good for you.
My wife learned years ago that I work very well in a virtual environment and not so well in a physical environment. I put up shelves in an apartment, and they were pretty straight. Like, nothing was falling off this side or that side because they were even this way. But when you put something on it, it would fall towards you. So I'm not even sure how I configured that malarkey. Like that was me as a person taking time to do something and screwing things into studs in the wall, and I could not get it to keep things on the shelf and fall towards me, which is a unique ability.
That's a big time feel. Like that just is me to a T with tools. It's the same.
Well, congratulations. That's a special kind of hell. Sam, you're our last one.
All right. I'm trying to think of something interesting. I'll go back to, I don't know if it was Monday night, Tuesday morning. It's a blur because I didn't sleep. But I did learn something that I've been wondering about for a while. And it's the trivial thing for people who are in the development world and used to GitHub, but new for me. I figured out how to create different PRs for different batches of commits. So I can separate different changes into their own PRs for simply reviewing and whatnot. So it felt like a great way to keep the project organized and keep moving without having to wait for one to get merged before doing the next one.
Nice. All right.
That does sound pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that concludes. We only went over by 6 minutes. That's pretty good. It's hard to get rid of stop a good conversation. But anybody who missed this, or you want to give this or recommend our show to somebody else, we are on our YouTube, which is youtube.com/@TrimarkSecurity, and also on Spotify. Just give us a search on Google Podcast and Apple Podcast. As always, TrimarkSecurity. .com. I have not drank enough water today. I'm dehydrated. TrimarkSecurity.com. We do assessments. We are like literally the experts. Like not for nothing. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. We're the experts. Active Directory, Azure AD, and VMware vSphere. We got a newsletter you can sign up for on there. Challenge. I don't talk about this enough. Just because it's not a con doesn't mean they're not live. Challenge.trimarksecurity.com. You can go through our Shmoo crypto challenge. You can go through our B-Sides Charm challenge. We keep all of our past ones up there. So check that out, challenge.trimarksecurity.com. And we will be back next week. Jake, do we know who our guest is? Do we have a guest next week?
Brandon knows.
Yeah, it's my man. Vince is coming on, the small business pen tester. Met him at B-Sides KC last year. He and I both spoke. He's done a lot of speaking engagements. He's running a village. I found out he'll be at GERCON, so I told him to touch base with my Trimark friends who will be there as well.
As a sponsor, we are a sponsor of GERCON this year. And
I'm speaking.
Investigator Chick is speaking. We're all going to be there.
Woo woo.
We're a sponsor of Blue Team Con and Wild West Hacking Fest. We're doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, come enjoy us. Oh, we also got coming up, Sub T will be on, Casey John Ellis, Philip Wiley. We're going to discuss our plan to wrestle the Bears from Black Hills. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to tag team. And don't think I'm joking either, because I'm going to try to figure out a way to make this happen. Wherever those Bears are and me and Phil exist in the same space, it's probably going to happen. So yeah, until then, thank you everybody for joining, and time to go out. Happy weekend.